My name is Vito Maria, and I'm the Development Director for Red Songbird Foundation. And on behalf of co-chairs Jason Wahler and Hillary Roberts and the entire organization, we'd like to thank you for coming and welcome you to Red Songbird Foundation's Community Town Hall on Addiction and Mental Health, along with our partner for this evening, Overtaken. Just real briefly, the Red Songbird Foundation was established to help those less fortunate obtain the care they need for trauma, mental health, and alcoholism or substance abuse. The motto of the organization is helping people heal from the darkness of their past. And we do this through education, outreach, resources, and treatment scholarships. And it's our mission to raise awareness and save as many lives as possible. The mission of Red Songbird is a very serious mission to really help people in need. And we're often dealing with people or families in crisis. But tonight, there's reason to be hopeful and celebrate the work of tonight's speakers. In one way or another, they have already or are actively working to turn tragedy into triumph. And no one embodies that more than the first person we're going to introduce, Jason Wahler. Jason is a host, actor, TV personality, philanthropist who's appeared on hit shows like MTV's Laguna Beach, The Hills, and celebrity rap superstar. But Jason has battled addiction for a good portion of his life and did this in a very public way, which really makes it even more difficult. But Jason has come out the other side and has an incredibly successful life, has beat the odds, but more importantly, he lives every day to help other people and to share what he's learned, which is there's nobody who knows more on treatment facilities, on addiction, on recovery, and on what people need to do, and not just for the individuals that need the help, but for their families, their caregivers, parents, significant others. And I've seen this personally. It's truly incredible. For whatever reason, he had to go through what he went through, but I think his meaning in life is doing what he's doing, and Red Songbird is allowing that to happen and really affect, in a short time, hundreds of thousands of lives. So without further ado, we're going to play a brief video, and it's a condensed version of Jason's true E-Hollywood story. Thank you.
I came from a good place, and I lost all my morals and values. I was very out of control. It's scary looking back at how I used to be.
There's going to be some weird stuff coming up. It's going to be very interesting.
On MTV's Laguna Beach and The Hills, Jason Wahler was Lauren Conrad's on-again, off-again boyfriend and the resident hard-partying bad boy.
I was kind of like the guy's guy. You know, I like to drink and I like to hang out with friends and hang out with girls.
Before long, you kind of forgot that Jason was a part of reality TV because the real show was all the trouble that he was getting into on the party circuit.
At 18, 19 years old, most of your friends are looking for fake IDs, or I was being paid to travel the world and party. Basically, people would offer you money to come to these clubs. I did 30 states in 6 months. You'd show up with a couple buddies, go there for 2 hours, get paid, get whatever you wanted. It was like a tour, but our talent was drinking. At the time, I thought it was the most amazing thing, but little did I know I was a super, super sick individual.
How old is Jason today? What?
Jason Wahler's childhood in sunny Laguna Beach, California was idyllic.
I grew up in a very structured family. Mom and dad who were great parents, had 3 siblings and the youngest of 4. Played a lot of sports growing up. Family did a lot of trips. We'd spend a lot of time skiing. It was a very privileged life.
Jason was 17 and away at boarding school when reality TV producers invaded Laguna Beach to cast a new docu-soap.
I was talking to friends back home, and they said MTV's come down here to shoot a show based off of the real OC. Kristen and Steven and Lauren were a part of the first season, and I got back right when they finished rapping.
Kristen Cavallari and other pals in the show suggested Jason join the cast for season 2.
The whole reality thing, when it came up originally, I didn't even want to do it. I was pressured into it by peers and honestly other family members. They thought it'd be cool to have senior year documented.
I don't know. This sucks because I still like you and stuff, but I know what I did was
Done.
It was weird having your life being displayed on television. But before we knew it, we got news of the show was the #1 show on cable.
As the bad boy from Laguna Beach and the hills, Jason Wahler was constantly in the doghouse with girlfriend Lauren Conrad.
I want you here. Jessica, get away from me!
People loved tuning in every week to see her on-again, off-again relationship.
Jason, like I've told you, I would rather stay here and just,
then we can stay here.
and just be with me.
I can't.
Lauren decided to officially call it quits in August 2006, right between the filming of seasons 1 and 2 of The Hills. But the sort of underlying story was that his alcohol addiction is what really caused the wedge in the relationship.
Lauren's, a sweet girl. I was out partying a lot, and we just were two totally different personalities. So, it was a mess.
I'm hurting right now, so last night I had too much fun, so I'm taking it easy tonight. I have to, I can barely stand.
I was in the depths of addiction. I was not in a spot to be in any sort of relationship with anybody. I couldn't take care of myself, let alone be a companion in a relationship. When I was filming Laguna, the addiction was there, don't get me wrong, but it was not ignited. Going into The Hills, it got worse. But season 2 or 3 of The Hills is when it got bad. It just took off. I don't blame the entertainment business or, the shows for that. I had the disease. It's, if you have the ism, you have the ism.
Making matters worse, Jason tried to live up to the hype of his rock star reputation.
I had an overinflated ego with an underestimated sense of self-worth. So I really was utilizing alcohol and materialistic stuff trying to, basically prove who I really was. That's not how I felt about myself. Deep down I was really suffering. I was miserable.
Coming up,
I was the guy in the bathroom, snorted a bunch of coke by myself and pounding out of a bottle of vodka and walk out with a beer and everything's okay.
by early 2007, Jason Wahler was no longer a regular on The Hills, but the 20-year-old kept partying.
I was so deep by that time, I'd have a party with 100 people over my house, and I was the guy in the bathroom, snorted a bunch of coke by myself and pounding out of a bottle of vodka and walk out with a beer and pretend everything's okay. I had everything that society said was good. Fame, money, cars, houses, with girls, whatever you want to say. And my disease was so bad, it wasn't fun anymore.
Even though he was no longer on TV, Jason continued to make headlines because every time you turned around, he was getting arrested or getting into a fight, and it all was really the result of his alcoholism.
I felt horrible about it, but I'd be sitting there drinking saying, I can't believe I did that again. I'd gotten out of so many different situations I shouldn't have got out of, like a slap on the wrist kind of thing. I got arrested 4 times in 6 months in 4 different states. There was one judge that didn't matter what we did with any lawyers we had. He basically said, you're going to jail. I was in there 20 days.
Did you learn a lesson?
I learned a lesson, don't drink.
Jail time didn't stop the downward spiral. One night in 2009, Jason tried to take his life.
I was in a blackout. I was already hammered, but I think it was about 25 antabuse. And if you have one of them and you take it and you have any form of alcohol, it makes you very sick. So I already had a belly full of booze, and then took 25 of those and then pounded a bunch of vodka on it, and basically passed out. Only reason I'm alive is somebody found me within like half hour, and went to the hospital, and they had to pump me full of tar.
But even that wasn't rock bottom.
The lowest moment for me was when I was sitting in the therapy office with my mom and dad, and he said, your mom and I, our marriage is suffering. There's no emotion left. We're just waiting for the phone call that you're dead. I said, if I'm not going to do this for myself, I care enough about my family, I'll do it for them.
Jason got clean in July 2010. Newly sober, the 23-year-old joined the cast of Celebrity Rehab with Dr. Drew.
This was more about cleaning up his image and less about actually doing the detox, and I think it was a really good move on his part.
From 18 to 23 years old, there was so much internal damage that was done. Dr. Drew did a liver count. And he said I had the alcoholism of a 50-year-old because of how much I was drinking. When I got sober, I took one of my mug shots and I put it in a frame. And I put it by my toothbrush as a reminder of where I don't ever want to be again. Life is worth living sober. Mentally, it was the hardest thing I've ever had to go through. But today, I'm able to experience natural highs, and I forgot what that felt like because I was so deeply in my addiction.
At 27, Jason Wahler's new reality couldn't be farther from his hard partying years as the resident bad boy on Laguna Beach and the Hills.
cocaine produces more potent chemicals than heroin. When you get that natural high, there's no drugs or alcohol that can give you that feeling.
Today, the former teen star has dedicated his life to sobriety and paying it forward.
Before I was very self-centered, and it was all about me, and I was a miserable individual. Today, by helping others, it gets me out of myself. There's nothing more self-gratifying than helping people out, not looking for anything in return.
Through his work, Jason's helped hundreds of people get clean, including many of his old drinking buddies.
How many people did you use with here? I know him.
These two, I've never used with them. But basically, I got them sober.
Well, it's kind of cool how it trickles down. Jason has looked up to you and you've been a mentor to him, and then now Jason's a mentor to guys like me.
He saved my life multiple times, convincing me to come back, going to detox.
And mine was kind of like, he can do it, I can do it.
If you didn't sober up and get clean, I don't know how a lot of people would have ended up, especially in our family, especially me. Where would I be at right now?
When Ashley came into my life, it was the biggest blessing. The first thing I said to her, as I said, I just want you to know I'm sober and there's nothing more important than my sobriety. And she respected that from the moment we met. That was a huge turn on to me, and I really believe we connected. I think we're very, very good for each other.
After 2 years of dating, Jason married Ashley Slack on October 12, 2013.
This is totally us to the T. Like, dorky, silly, fun, crazy.
It was a day I'll never, ever forget. It was definitely the top days I've ever experienced in my life.
You look so good. Don't
You look better.
Jason and Ashley plan on filling more albums in the near future.
Who knows, next year we'll be maybe having a little baby.
I know, it's so crazy. Everybody's just got
Tons
kids
of
now.
kids, I know. We're the only people that don't have kids yet.
Soon.
It'll be exciting, yeah.
I would say there should be a little nugget around in about 2 years. I love you. When I look back, trust me, there's things I wish I didn't do, but I was a young kid and I was growing up. And as the time goes on, I got to give up hope of a better past. And that's something for me that I look at, and it's really formed me to where I'm at today.
This is cool. Can you guys hear me? Great. Vito, you left your notes up here, brother. No, I just wanted to first, thank everybody for being here. This is it's incredible to see everybody that's out here on such an important topic, especially mental health and addiction. And hopefully you got a little bit of, information behind my backstory, and just kind of wanted you guys to see a little bit behind of, Red Songbird Foundation and what we stand for. And obviously addiction has been a big part of my life, and it's affected not only me, but many of my family members, and there's a large portion of us that struggle, and I really want to make sure that we make a difference. Obviously that video is a little old, but I think, again, it's important just to kind of get a understanding where we're at, especially since I have kids now, and we're facing one of the most deadly diseases in the country. It's very, very scary to see where we're at. It's the leading cause of death in individuals 50 years and younger is addiction. And so I'm just really grateful that we're here. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here. It means a lot to us. And, I want to thank all the amazing speakers that are going to be here to share their testimonies and their experience, strength, and hope. So I'm very, very grateful for that. And the foundation, as you guys know, for me, somebody that struggled for so long, to be up here and to be in this spot, I never thought it would be real or be true. And but it's amazing what God can do and how he can give back, and how he can work in your life, and how we can be a resource and example for others. And so the foundation is very near and dear to my heart. This last year we gave away over $1 million, right, Alex? Over $1.3 million in scholarships. So it's truly a testimony. It's from events like this and individuals such as yourself, and there's so many of you in here that I know, and for those of you that I don't know, it's so nice to meet you. But we're stronger together. We're greater together. This is way bigger than any individual, any organization. So it's imperative that we continue this fight and we continue this work. And again, Red Songbirds, true core values is creating the most safe and trusted environment for people that struggle with substance abuse and mental health to have a place that they can go to. And moreover is the scholarships, right? For, providing scholarships for individuals that need help but don't have the means to get the help that they need. So that's really what we stand for and why we're here. Again, it's great to be able to leverage entertainment to bring awareness to this stuff, and we need it more and more. But moreover, is some of those videos, I don't know if you guys know, and the go-kart and the different stuff was right here. That's why it's so important for me to be in Laguna Hills, because before I moved to Laguna Beach, I lived in Nellygale. And Alex was actually one of the little kids on the boogie board was Alex. And so it's crazy to be back here. Everything's come full circle. The good thing they didn't have videos of me when I was younger, because my mom probably remembers this. I would go, and I knew I had addiction when I was young because I'd go cut my neighbor's flowers and then try to go resell them to her at 5 years old. Either that or my mom thought I was a great businessman. So, but anyways, there's so much more to it. I don't want to be up here and take away from your time. I really want to have the speakers here. Just it really means a lot to be here, and I'm just so grateful for everyone. And with that, Alex, you want to come on up, brother?
Hey everybody, my name's Alex Meschi. I'm the Executive Director for the Red Songbird Foundation. And it's a very special event for us to have here in Laguna Hills. Like Jason said, we grew up down the street. For the residents that have been here for 20 years, we went to preschool in the Gateway Center where OG's is located. Probably nobody remembers the preschool that was there because it was that long ago. So for us to be able to bring something back to not just our hometown, but where we grew up, where our families are still residing, it's a very special thing for us, and it makes us very proud to be able to be here today. Bring some of our friends from the foundation. A big thank you to Jodi Barber for helping us put this together and bringing some of her friends out. And we even had support from the Orange County Sheriff's Department, so thank you to them as well. So rolling right along, I'd like to bring Jodi up here to give a little presentation and show her slide, and then we'll get into the other speakers and keep the show rolling.
Jodi! This is the fairy godmother of addiction in Orange County. Queen?
Thank you.
Here you go, dear.
Thank you. I've got my glasses. Wait, sorry, I dropped my glasses and I don't see them now. Where'd they go? Hold on. Where'd my glasses go? Oh, God. I need my glasses.
They're on your shirt. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
Here you go.
Thank you. Okay. All right. First of all, thank you all for being here, and thank you, Jason and Alex, for everything you've done for this event. It's amazing, and I appreciate you all coming tonight with COVID and everything. I really do appreciate it. At the end of the Overtaken documentary, I mentioned pills kill. One pill can kill. One opiate can change your brain chemistry to where you crave more. 14-year-olds were becoming addicted to prescription drugs. Today, many of those kids are still addicted. They are alive, but not living. Many of those kids are young adults in treatment again, now addicted to fentanyl. Many are in recovery and thriving. Many have died. Today, that message still stands. One pill can kill. Fentanyl poisoning is killing 13 and 14-year-olds wanting to take a pill for the first time. The difference is it's not prescribed. The pill is sold by a dealer on Snapchat or on the street. What they thought was a Xanax, Percocet, or Oxycontin was actually fentanyl. We have Sergeant Gunsolley, who will be talking more about this. Fentanyl is killing people today, but we must not disregard the fact that prescription drugs given to your child or teen can also be dangerous, and we must dispose of any expired or unused medications in the pouch. This is the pouch I'm talking about, and I have them in the back. This is the deTerra system that is very simple to use in the convenience of your home. I have free pouches available at the resource table, as well as free DVDs of Overtaken, which Christine Wood and I produced. Please make sure to stop by all the resource tables. We have my friend Amy sitting there in the corner. Amy saves lives every day. She hands out Narcan and naloxone. Yes, she's amazing. Amy lost her beautiful son, Ben, and this is her journey. This is what she does. She trains people for free and is saving so many lives. Thank you, Amy. Now I'd like to introduce our next speaker. Lacey Hester Bradshaw is the daughter of Tammy and stepdaughter of former American football quarterback who played professional football in the NFL, Terry Bradshaw. Lacey is married to Noah Hester, and they have 2 children. She has 2 stepsisters. Her brother, Cody, passed away in 2009 from a drug overdose. I learned of their tragedy about a month ago while watching their reality show called The Bradshaw Bunch. That episode touched my heart deeply as I listened to Lacey talk about her brother, while her mother watched with sadness, yet so proud of her daughter. Here's a clip. As the cool and collected star of E! Entertainment's new hit show, The Bradshaw Bunch, Lacey Hester shines in a family full of big personalities through her love for friendly competition and her shared passion for sports with her father, 4-time Super Bowl champion, Terry Bradshaw. Lacey and Noah flew from Texas to speak. Please give a warm welcome to Lacey Hester Bradshaw.
All right, first step, I didn't fall up the stairs. Starting off great. Yeah, that girl stole my speech. I don't know what I'm going to talk about now. Thanks, guys, all for being here and having me. I really feel really blessed and honored to get to talk about something so close to mine and my family's hearts. Talking about this subject brings up a lot of emotions, I think, for all of us. When I can speak for everybody when I say that, like grief and anger, embarrassment, confusion, but every time I get to come up here and talk to a group about this, those feelings start changing to, pride and hope, and I'm just really hopeful. Seeing everybody here makes me so hopeful that we're really headed in the right direction, bringing awareness and making a change. So you kind of heard a little bit about my story and why I was invited here. You heard me say, it didn't tell the whole speech, but I said, I got the phone call that said we lost your brother last night, and my response was, well, where'd you lose him? Because if you knew him, he was just always joking and playing pranks, and it just made more sense that, I'm like, well, did you leave him at the party? Did you leave him at the restaurant? It just made more sense that that would have been the case than him dying of an overdose. No one's ever prepared for that. No one ever thinks that that can happen to them. And it's not talked about enough. I was at a dinner party the other night, and I was sitting at a table with 10 other people, and substance abuse got brought up. And it was amazing to me because every single person at that table who I didn't know told a story. Every single person, all of those 10 people had been impacted by substance abuse or addiction. And it just needs to be talked about. It needs to be mainstream, not hidden or swept under the rug. It needs to be okay to talk about it. And that's the way that we can remove the negative stigma and the way that we can make change. Sorry, I went on a tangent there. Let me find my notes here. Cody was my buddy, my accomplice, the only other person in my life that knew all my stories, and we grew up together. We went through everything together, and to not have him now because of the one choice he made is really devastating. you know, 500,000 Americans have this same story in common that I do. And it's just so hard to know that this many people can be impacted by one choice and one decision. For a long time, it was really, really hard for me to share this story. I felt like I would say, my brother passed away, and people would go, "Oh no, I'm so sorry, what happened?" And then you go, "Well, he died of a drug overdose." And they're like, "Oh." It's like, no, it's he was an amazing man, and that shouldn't define him, but it does. People still just think that that makes you a bad person because you use drugs, and that's not the case. And I felt like it tainted his memory to tell the story, and that was awful. Until I got to the opportunity to start talking about it more and realizing how many people are impacted by this. I think the elephant in the room of substance abuse and addiction is mental health and mental illness. And this foundation specifically is one of the first ones that I've gotten to work with that talks about that part. Everybody talks about the substance abuse and the drugs, but not always talks about the underlying cause or the underlying issues, which is the mental illness. It's easier to address the surface issues. People think like if you can get them to stop using, they're saved, they're better, everything's fine. But unfortunately, it's just a Band-Aid that you put on like a festering wound. It's not gonna fix the problem long term. 9 million people with substance abuse that have been diagnosed with a substance abuse disease were also diagnosed with a co-occurring mental illness, the most prevalent being depression, anxiety, bipolar, ADHD, OCD, and only 7% of those 9 million people are seeking treatment for both the substance abuse as well as the underlying issue. And 60% of those people are not seeking treatment at all anymore. Cody, I think, was one of those 60%. Looking back, I didn't notice it, and neither did my family. We didn't notice, he was sad sometimes, but we didn't notice that he was suffering from depression and anxiety until later. And it just makes me so mad now thinking about it that I could have helped him had I not been ignorant about, the underlying problem. I always wonder if he would still be here if I had recognized that he needed help. And would he still be here if he felt comfortable enough to come forward and say, here's what I'm dealing with? And in that time, it wasn't talked about enough, and he wasn't comfortable with it. I think, we've talked about this, but addiction is a disease. It's a lifelong battle. It doesn't just go away. And I lost my spot. Sorry, this is hard for me to talk about. I'm still learning to talk about it myself. It's emotional. But yeah, so wondering if he would still be here if all of that had happened. You can't dwell on the past. You just have to move forward and try to make a difference in the future. And that's what I'm trying to do by bringing awareness. So thank you for your time and listening to me talk. And I get the pleasure now of introducing the most amazing man I have ever met. I'm a little biased because he's my husband. But he is just a wonderful man, a wonderful father, just the best guy. And it's not lost on me the fact that he could very easily not be just coming up and talking with us today. And this is his first time sharing his story publicly, so give him a warm welcome.
Thank you, guys. And thank you, Lacey, for saying all those very sweet and over-exaggerated things about me. Like Lacey said, I'm one of the lucky ones who is able to stand here. I'll go through my story pretty quickly, but there's a good chance that I should be not standing here. I went through a lot of addiction. It's been something prevalent in my family from day one, but also not talked about. I have a pretty typical story. Divorced parents, growing up in the 80s, my mom and dad smoked pot. They drank a lot of times around me and my sister, so we saw it. We didn't really think there was anything wrong with it. So in middle school, 6th grade, I stole some of my mom's pot, went and smoked it, felt great. Again, seemed like there was nothing wrong with it. So I continued this on into high school, and then pretty quickly started hallucinogens and cocaine And again, being selfish, I didn't really realize that this was affecting my family and my life was fine. So I continued to do this. As a young adult, graduated high school, went to Nashville, Tennessee, and I worked in kitchens. I'm a chef currently. I've worked in kitchens my whole life. And if you don't know and haven't been in a kitchen, there's a lot of drug and alcohol use in kitchens. It's a very, very common thing. So I continued on this path, doing cocaine, drinking all the time, and then one particular night, after being up all night, not sleeping, going into work, feeling miserable, my addict brain was like, well, if I get high, then I'll feel great again. Called my dealer up, couldn't find cocaine, but he said, I've got some black tar heroin, if you'd like to try that. So I said, why not? And little did I know that it only takes 1 or 2 times of doing that, and then all of a sudden your body craves it and your body needs it. And pretty quickly it wasn't fun anymore. It was now a job. Now I'm spending $500 a day just to be normal. I'm lying to my family, I'm lying to my friends, I'm stealing from my friends, I'm showing up to work 2 hours late. You know, my life is completely unmanageable. I did have enough knowledge and wherewithal to know that something was wrong. And so I called my mom and I said, Mom, I'm fucked up. I need to come home. Sorry, excuse my language. But that's what I said. That's what I was. And so she bought me a ticket the next day. I left my house, my car, my dog. I left everything I'd made for myself and went back to Hawaii, where I grew up. So my parents, you know, they were very kind. They helped me. They loved me through it. I was dope sick on the couch for several weeks, you know, shaking and crying and in the fetal position. And, you know, it was so bad that at one point my mom wanted to go out and find some heroin for me because it was so painful for her to watch me in this state. They didn't really know what to do. You know, they did what they could, which was loving me through it. We did go and talk to a doctor who was going to put me on methadone. You know, we decided at that point, I was already 5 or 6 days into detox, that I was just going to cold turkey it, which worked. So I get over heroin, you know, but again, I didn't address the root of the issue of why I started using in the first place. So I didn't do heroin again, but I then very quickly picked up crystal methamphetamine, which is very prevalent in Hawaii. And so there I go again, down this road, and living in my mom's house, and she's watching all of this go down, and I'm sure she could see that something was wrong, but she didn't know what to do. She started going to NA and AA meetings to get some help and get some advice. And I will say that she has now been sober for 16 years, and she's huge in NA and AA. Yeah. And it's really cool because now she gets to speak to people and she gets to help other families and other moms that are going through the same thing she went through. And one of the things that NA taught her to do was just to let me go. That if she didn't let go of me and stop trying to help me, I wasn't going to help myself. And so she did. She did one of the hardest things a mom probably had to do is she actually moved out of her house into another house, and she said, you have until this date to be out of here or I'm calling the police. And so I lived there as long as I could. I moved out. I lived in my car. I'm smoking meth. I'm, you know, being a bad person. And I can't imagine how hard that was for her or for my dad or my sister, who now essentially excommunicated me. And I ran down this path for as long as I possibly could until one day the ATF shows up at the restaurant I'm working at, and I've got guns in the car and I've got drugs in the car. You know, they pick me up and they put me on an airplane and fly me to a federal prison. And as I'm sitting there, they call my mom and they say, hey, we've got your son here. If he can come up with bail, would you like to take him home? And my mom says, nope, I know where he is now. At least I know he's safe. And I'm hearing this on the speakerphone, and at the time I'm pissed. And now I look back at it and I cannot once again imagine what it was like for her to say that on the phone. So, sorry, excuse me. Very quickly, I find out that this is serious. All of a sudden, I'm facing 8 years in federal prison, 22 years old. You know, I didn't think I was doing anything wrong. I was selfish. I had no idea that there was going to be consequences for this. And surprisingly, I still didn't learn. Eventually, 5 or 6 months later, I'm awaiting trial. I get out. I go to a 30-day rehabilitation program. I spend 30 days in-house, I get out to a halfway house, I go out and get high. Because I think in my brain, I'm looking at 8 years in prison, why not go enjoy myself? So that quickly puts me right back in prison. That's how that works. Luckily, some of my charges were dropped. I ended up doing 1.5 years in this federal prison. I get out, I come back to my family, and now I'm ready. I'm ready to be sober. And so my mom takes me to NA, she takes me to AA, I do all these meetings, I learn these tools to help me, and for me, the hardest part was not using, it was more of admitting that I was still a good person. I had a hard time looking people in the eye and talking to them. I was so ashamed that I went to prison. I was so ashamed that I put my family through this. I was so ashamed that I was a drug addict. Now, anybody that's been to NA or AA, you have to admit that you're a drug addict, and that's really, really, really hard because you're admitting that you have a flaw. Luckily, again, my parents were so supportive that they helped me through all of this. They made sure I went to AA meetings. They made sure I went to NA meetings. They talked to me openly. They weren't ashamed of who I was. They were ready to meet the new me. So that was 2007 that I got out. So now it's been that 21 years, 15 years now that I've been drug-free, excuse my math. And now I get to look at my mom and look at my sister and look at my dad, and I see pride. I see that they are proud of me. And my mom tells me on a regular basis how proud she is of the person that I am today, which makes me proud of even the person that I was then. I know I was not making good choices, but it is now what made me who I am today. And so I'm able to come into a room like this and speak to people and speak to younger people and tell them that it's okay, man. It's okay to make these mistakes. It's okay to have an addiction. It's a normal thing. But the hardest part of that is turning that around. And so when I met Lacey and heard her story, and I still, every time that I hear this story, it breaks my heart because so easily I could have been that person. And the statistics of me coming out of prison and getting my life back together is so slim. I remember after I made it the first year out of prison, and somebody told me that now you have 50% chance of staying out of prison. So for that first year, you have almost a 95% chance of going back into prison. And if I didn't have the family and the support that I had, I very easily could have been right back in that same position. So I just really want to say thank you to everyone who's here doing this and putting their life on hold to help other people, because every single person in this room, if you help one other person, that's 150 more people that we save. It's a pretty incredible thing. And Jodi, I can't imagine the loss that their family has had or Lacey's had, and I can't imagine that I could have done that to my family. So really thank you guys very much for being here. I really appreciate you letting me ramble on. Thank you.
All right. Next, we have a very, very dear friend of mine who I've got the pleasure to know over the next. That's not yet. It's. Oh, sorry. Never mind. Break. Jodi, come on up. Come on, Jodi. Come on, Jodi. Here you are. You're my dear friend as well. I'm going to hand it over to you. You do it. I got you.
I love you. Okay. You want to hold that?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay. Got my glasses. Okay. Sergeant Brian Gunsolley has been with the Orange County Sheriff's Department for 23 years. His experience included working various details, including corrections, patrol, critical incident response team, field training officer, drug liaison officer, DUI task force member, and school resource officer. Sergeant Gunsolley currently supervises the community engagement unit responsible for providing drug and safety education to K-12 schools and the community. Sergeant Gunsolley, can you tell I like saying your name? Has a BA in economics from UCLA and is in his final semester earning a Master of Science degree in law enforcement and public safety, leadership from the University of San Diego. Over the past year, Sergeant Gunsolley designed a 6th grade drug prevention education program to help students make informed decisions about substance use before they head into their teen years. The program is based on the latest prevention research and includes 6 one-hour classroom sessions facilitated by a trained deputy. The program provides fentanyl awareness and the dangers of medication abuse to address the opioid epidemic in our community. Sergeant Gunsolley can't think of a more important endeavor than to keep our children safe from the devastating effects of substance abuse. I met Sergeant Gunsolley when I began my mission. Actually, it was here. It was at an event here where I first met you. I was grateful to see his passion and interest towards the drug epidemic. Here is a testimony from a young lady I know. Sergeant Gunsolley helped me through some hard times at the end of my senior year. I wish I could give him a big hug. This is when she saw my flyer on Facebook of the event. If he only knew how much he actually helped me. On behalf of the Red Songbird Foundation, we would like to present the Champion of the Community Award to Sergeant Brian Gunsolley for his years of public service, dedication, and commitment. But first, let me bring up Jessica to help present your award and give you that big hug. Wow. Jessica, come on up. I got these things. Good. Do you want to say something?
Hi, guys. I'm very happy to be here. I'm a huge supporter in mental health, and my daughter's dad actually struggles with addiction, so I'm very honored that the person who helped me most my senior year is deeply hearted and a part of it. So I'm so happy I could be here to give you a hug.
Do you remember her?
Yes.
How can he not?
They're so good.
Isn't that awesome?
Let me say a few things. Please. All right. Well, thank you so much for this award. This is amazing. When I got into law enforcement 22 years ago, I really didn't know what I was getting into. I went to the jails, and I worked there for 7 years. And a lot of what I dealt with was people who were addicted. And then I went to the streets, and I went about 90% of the calls that I went to were people who had some type of addiction-related issue, or it was someone was under the influence, and that was causing the problem. So it hit me that a lot of our issues are related to substance use. So that drove me to start down that road. Right? If we're going to help a community and help police it and help as many people as possible, then let's help the addiction issue, right? And so that's where I focused on, well, let's go back to students. Let's talk to high school. Let's go there. So I tried being a school resource officer to help as many people, help young kids as I could. And then I realized, you know what? We actually need to go back to younger than that. We need to go back to 6th grade. And that's really been my focus since about 2010, to really help kids with better choices before they venture into their teen years. Because most addiction starts in the teen years. So it's been a passion of mine. I've foregone a lot of law enforcement choices and options in order to stay on this course because I think it's so important. I think it really gets to the root of a lot of our problems in society. And I've met so many good people that struggle with this disease. And I really have just, you start off in law enforcement, and you do have that idea that they're bad people, that they've made bad choices. But I've found that's so different. Just like you mentioned, and others have mentioned, they're real people behind that. They're good people, but they just have that disease. And that really has been something I've learned over the years, and I appreciate that. And I'm glad that you mentioned it. So thank you for this award. I'm going to speak a little bit more about fentanyl in a little bit, but this is very touching, and I really appreciate it. Thank you. Of course.
Thank you very much. I think we're going to have you continue, right, Alex? Okay. Yep. Put this bag right here. Roger, thank you so much. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, I'm on. Okay, so I'm going to talk about fentanyl because fentanyl is currently our biggest problem. It's our biggest killer right now in our society. So we need as many people to know about this as we can. Before, when I started, it was about stopping addiction, because addiction would take hold and then it eventually will cause premature death, right? But now, people don't, that shift has occurred between where people would die in their 50s to now they're dying in their 20s because of fentanyl. So we want to bring more fentanyl awareness. Go ahead, next slide. So fentanyl, for those of you who may not know what it is, it's a very strong opiate. It's 50 to 100 times more potent than morphine and 30 to 50 times more potent than heroin. It's currently being sold as counterfeit pills on the streets. And it can be disguised as Xanax, M30 pills, which is a commonly sold as M30s. Or when people order them, like on Snapchat, they'll look for M30s or Fent. And we have like a Percocet that's a counterfeit. So people who are using drugs, they'll go out and ask for these for fentanyl, and they'll come as disguised as a pill. Now, if you're a young teenager that wants to experiment, you trust pills, right? You get them from a pharmacy, you've gotten them from your parents, so you trust pills. So you may take these not thinking that they're dangerous. But these pills are not made by a pharmaceutical company. These are made in warehouses. These are made in garages. And that's what's so dangerous about these, because we don't know, there's no quality control for these pills that are being made. Next slide. So if you can see this, why it's so dangerous is that this is a penny right here, and this tiny amount is the amount that can kill you of fentanyl. And that's enough to, it's such a small amount. If that was pure heroin on the left, then on the right, that there's barely any in that vial, that's enough to kill you. Right? So you can see how potent fentanyl is, that you just don't need very much. And that's one thing about when the drug dealers are selling this stuff or mixing it in with other drugs, is that you can buy a bunch of it and then it can go a long ways, which makes good business sense, right? Which is why we have our biggest problem with it. And I'll talk a little more about that in a minute. Go ahead, next slide. Oh, and we've added now fentanyl awareness to all of our presentations that we do. Even if we're doing something, on traffic safety, we'll throw in fentanyl awareness because it's just so important that we get that out there. So the pill, I talked about counterfeit pills being out, being prevalent now as the form of how it's being sold. You can see here, this is Q1. I don't know how well this shows up. Q1, Q2, and Q3 of last year, it went from down here from 11,000 pills that we've confiscated or seized during traffic stops, during investigations and stuff, to 119,471 pills being confiscated. And that's per quarter. So you can see how this is spiking. This is really going up. And that's, again, that business of fentanyl is allowed to just go and just not be stopped. Nothing's stopping it right now. And we have addiction, obviously, is occurring as well. So as people get hooked, the demand increases. Next slide. So this ends up in rising death rates. Okay, so this is what we have. This is the latest statistics for 2021 on the very right. If you look at left is 2016, we can see a steady increase occurring. Now, there are 300 cases that have not been completed yet by the coroner's office. So that means that they have toxicology results that are pending. So this number could potentially go up, if you hit the next slide, 2021 could go up like that. So that shows how our problem is just getting worse and not better when it comes to fentanyl. Okay, go ahead, next slide. So juvenile Fentanyl-related deaths. Now that's something that I've really been focusing on because we want to stop our kids from going down this road, right? So in 2021, the fentanyl-related deaths were 19 plus. Now there's still some toxicology results left to come in, so the number's only going to go up. So when it comes to juveniles, it's the number one killer now for kids 17 and younger in Orange County. That just changed this year. Number one killer. So the coroner's office has asked me to come and be part of their child death review team so that they can bring a prevention aspect into that discussion, because it's so important, because this is now the number one killer. Next slide. So naloxone deployments. So naloxone is a drug that you can spray into someone's nose and it reverses the effects of the overdose temporarily. So the way fentanyl or opiates can kill you, when there's enough of it becomes poisonous, and it stops your breathing. It's a depressant. So it stops the breathing, and then eventually the heart continues to beat. And if you can get to that person in enough time, you can spray this spray into their nose. It'll counteract the results as long as the blood is still pumping, right? The heart is still pumping, and blood circulates that medicine, and then you can reverse the effects. It's only temporary. You really still have to have the fire department come and continue the care, because you can spray that in there and you think, oh, well, we're in the clear now, but that will wear off and then they'll stop breathing again, depending on how much they have in their system. So it's important to get the fire department there, paramedics, to continue the care. But you can see our deployments. We carry this on us when we're out in patrol or working in the jails. They have gone up significantly since 2015, and so 117 deployments just last year. So we can get usually to, if someone is overdosing, to them faster than the fire department, because we're just usually out patrolling, and then the fire department have those big lumbering trucks that just take longer to get there. And when seconds count, that makes a big difference in saving lives. So teenagers use Snapchat, Instagram to get their drugs now. So if parents that are out there and you suspect your kid may be using drugs, you got to get in the phone. You got to get in that phone. And you got to take a look and see what they're doing. And if there's anything that indicates that they're using drugs, you have to get on that. It's not something that just goes away. You have to start doing something. Next slide. So here's something that we talk about with the kids, and it's really important for everybody to understand, is how this works. So fentanyl powder gets, to make these counterfeit pills, all it takes is someone to take this binding agent, which is like a microcrystalline cellulose is a binding agent, and you can put a scoop of fentanyl powder in with that agent, and then you put it into a pill press, and you crank out some pills. And depending on how much you want to spend on that pill press, you can crank out a lot or one at a time, So someone could buy these pill presses online and then set up their own lab and buy their fentanyl and just start cranking out these pills. There's no quality control involved in making these pills. So next slide. So I use this analogy. There we go. So if we have cookie dough here. So the cookie dough itself is the binding agent, and the fentanyl is the chocolate chips that are added to the binding agent. And then you make the cookie dough balls over on the right, which represent the pills. Not every one of those pills is going to have the same amount of fentanyl in it, right? So the first time someone wants to get high on fentanyl, they try a pill and they go, hey, that was great, I loved it. I want to try another one. They call the same dealer. The same dealer delivers them a pill, and it gives them one with a fatal dose. So that's how these things are killing people. It's like Russian roulette. Okay, they're getting these counterfeit pills. One doesn't have a fatal dose, and the next one does. And you just don't know which one has which. Here's just a pill press, just to demonstrate that you could buy this, and then you just put powder in the top, and the pills pop out on the bottom, and it's super fast. Just cranks them out. So the Sheriff's Department, one of the things that I've worked on over the past, during COVID, we kind of got shut down as far as going out and into the community. So I really took that time to recreate a drug prevention program for our kids in all of our schools. And so it's called Above the Influence. And like Jodi said, it's a 6 one-hour class. It's for 5th and 6th grade students. And it has all kinds of interactions in it that we have videos, we have lecture, we use props, we do demonstrations, and we just have fun with the kids, and we teach them about substance abuse. Next slide. This is a picture of me teaching a class with the kids. I like to go out. I have 2 deputies that are in my unit and myself, and we're trying to raise money to get more deputies so that we could get more awareness out there. Not enough money is getting budgeted for prevention. There's a lot of money, almost unlimited amount of money that goes to suppression, right? To go out and find the drugs, because you can count a number of pills, but you can't count how many lives you save. It's just, that's how the money is distributed, right? So we are doing what we can with the little bit of amount of money that we're allotted. So we go out to the classroom, we teach a lot of different topics. It's over a 6-week period. Go ahead, next slide. So we also have a high school program where we have a leadership group that starts at the high school, and then those high school students then go to the middle schools that feed that high school, and then they teach them about drug education. So it's a peer-on-peer education program. And we take those students at the high school who are involved in it and really get into it. We'll take them to Washington, D.C., and then they participate in the CADCA Youth Leadership Conference in Washington, D.C. It's a nationwide thing where all the students come. My wife and I chaperoned the last group when we went, and we had a great time with the kids. We also took a tour of Washington, D.C. Next slide. One of the other things that we do is a Red Ribbon campaign every year. My unit did 32 Red Ribbon assemblies during October. That's in addition to all the other things that we had. We go to the high schools and we do assemblies. We distribute 600,000 wristbands to 661 schools in Laguna Hill, or in Orange County. If you know where those wristbands come from, they come from the Sheriff's Department, and Drug Use is Life Abuse is our partner that we work with to raise money for that. Next slide. National Prescription Take-Back Day. It happens every April and October. That's the time that you guys can, gather up all your medications and take them to a location. We have one. This is one of those locations, and you can get rid of all your medication that is expired or unwanted. That way, young people won't get their hands on it. Another thing we can do presentations. So if anybody has a group that you would like someone to come out and talk to, PTAs, we will come and talk. We will provide speakers to be able to talk about any type of topic, really, about drugs, as long as it's law enforcement related. We can do traffic safety. We can do all kinds of things. But we really like to talk about the substance abuse stuff to get out there. Go back one. We started a Parent Aware series on social media as well, and that's me searching a room. I actually use the coroner's office. They have these training rooms where they put dead bodies. They're not real. They're fake dead bodies. But they're bodies that were made by Hollywood. And they put them in there, and then they use it as a training place for the students to come in and try and figure out what happened. And so they have to search this room. Well, we remove those, and we use that as a room for a search. And we said, well, what would be good for parents is to learn how to do a search. We're in the time of fentanyl. Parents have to search these rooms and find what's going on in there. If they suspect at all that their kids are using, or if they notice that their friends, because sometimes you deny the fact that your child might be using, but you notice that their friends are probably users. Well, if their friends are users, then your child is also around users, right? So you better check their room. You better see if there's anything going on in there, because you're going to want to get on that before it progresses to where they get a fatal overdose or they get addicted. Okay, so we just put up some a video to how to search a room, just a tutorial. Next slide. Then we have our youth diversion program where we work with Pepperdine University, and they provide psychologists in a program where we can send families and students to this program to get an intake and find out what's going on. And our sheriff every year goes to Sacramento and tries to get some type of legislation that makes it a harsher penalty for fentanyl to be sold on the streets. Right now, dealers are selling, their drugs are killing people, and then they just continue on down the road to sell more pills, right? So we're trying to get some type of harsher penalty. They shouldn't be, they know fentanyl can kill, but they continue to sell it anyway, right? So, but so if you're in possession of 1 gram of methamphetamine, and then that's one penalty, and if you have a kilo of methamphetamine, that's a harsher penalty. You'll go to prison for that. If you have 1 gram of fentanyl and 1 kilo of fentanyl, it's the same penalty. There's no harsher penalty for that. So you can get a kilo and sell it, kill people, and probably not even know you're killing people, and not have a harsher penalty. And the reason why our legislators don't want to do that is they don't want to incarcerate more people. And what it also does is it leaves an opportunity for this business to grow, because they're not stopping it, right? You're not taking those people off the streets and stopping it. You're just allowing it to continue. The DEA is getting creative now, and law enforcement in general, is that when someone does die as a result, they'll charge them with murder, but you have to line up a lot of ducks in a row before you can charge that person with a murder. They have to have been given some type of notification that, hey, on your previous drug possession, you were notified and signed something saying that your drugs, if sold, could kill someone. So it's really hard to do that. So we've got this problem right now in our society, especially in California, because we don't want to get tough on those dealers. Next slide. And my final thoughts. So illegal fentanyl kills without prejudice. That's the same, goes with all drugs, right? But fentanyl in particular, we have to watch our kids, because if they start experimenting, most of this stuff starts with pot and alcohol, and then it progresses to something more serious. So, we've legalized marijuana in this state, and kids are getting that message that there's no danger with marijuana. But the truth is, it starts there, always starts there for kids, and then it progresses to something else. Almost every one of the addicts that we talk to, we ask, how did you get started? And it was with marijuana. So if you have a child or you know somebody who's starting down the road, don't ignore the marijuana and say, oh, it's legal, Or if you yourself smoke it, okay, that's fine. But you know what? Kids, their brains are different. They're undeveloped, and they can't have that in their brain, because it'll send them down the road. And it'll affect anybody. It doesn't matter what age you are. It'll kill you, young, old. It doesn't matter what your race is, what your income level is, nothing. Next slide, or next one. Illegal fentanyl versus prescription fentanyl. So it's very important to know that we have illegal fentanyl, right, which I've been talking about. And then we have prescription fentanyl. So somebody could get prescribed regular fentanyl, and that's okay as long as it's supervised by a doctor, okay, and it comes from a pharmacy. So I just want to make sure that when I work with the healthcare agency, they're like, make sure you differentiate between the two, because, we can't take people's prescriptions away from them or make them think that they shouldn't be taking it because it could kill them. It's taken, as long as it's taken as prescribed. Next slide. The war on drugs implies an end. There is no end to this battle, okay? We need to consider long-term management and collaboration solutions instead. So that's one thing. We've had this war on drugs for so long, and we've used our law enforcement resources to go after that war, thinking that someday it will end. Addiction is part of our society. We have to think about how can we manage it, right, and reduce it, rather than just try and get rid of it. Because if we think we're going to get rid of it, we're just not. It's not going to happen, right? So we have to think long term. Next one. And then drug use and addiction thrive on denial and inaction. Okay, that's where drugs exist, is when your user themselves says, I don't have a problem, or when the family says, I don't have a problem, we don't have a problem. Okay, and then it allows it to just continue and continue and continue. If you think there might be a problem, that's where action needs to happen. Okay, we can't let this continue unchecked and in denial. Okay, all right. I think that's it. Next slide. All right, that's it. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for the award. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Sergeant. That was some very insightful information, and learned actually a lot from that I was not aware of. So, but without further ado, for our final speaker tonight, we have a very dear friend of mine. She is somebody that has dedicated her life to raising awareness on substance abuse, mental health, addiction. You know, she uses her platform as well. You may have seen her on Baywatch, you may have seen her on Rat Race. She's been on many shows, but got a heart of gold, just very loving, caring, kind, and compassionate, and wants to give back. She's also a part of our board for the Red Songbird Foundation. So I want to introduce my very dear friend, Brandy Ledford.
Thank you, Jason. So incredible. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Hi, I'm Brandy, and I'm an alcoholic and a drug addict.
Brandy!
I am really pleased to be here, not just as a board member of RSF, although that's a highlight of my life now, in philanthropy and also in trying to give back a little bit of what I've so generously and graciously received. But I want to tell my story, and I want to do it in a way that I hope is helpful, just to spread some hope, because everything I'm hearing tonight seems hopeless a little bit, right? Like I hear, Sergeant, congratulations on your award, well deserved, but I feel like, what are we going to do? Like, what are we going to do about this? It seems worse during COVID, it seems worse and worse as I go along. And when you said this, Sergeant, it reminded me, you said it starts with pot. When I was 11 years old, I started smoking pot for the first time. And I can't believe you said it starts with pot. It really did for me. It got me out of feeling the way I didn't want to be feeling at that time. And so by the time I was 14, I was doing cocaine. And I was partying every weekend. I was real wild. By the time I was 16, I had my first DUI. 17, I had my second DUI, and I was thrown in jail for drunken punch as well. And I almost lost my life to drugs and alcohol when I was in my 20s. By the grace of God, I was able to get sober at that time. I transferred that addiction to workaholism for a while, but I didn't drink or smoke. But I continued to have suicide ideation. I continued throughout my life to have mental health, not mental health struggles, but I didn't know a way out. I didn't really have a program of recovery. I just stopped drinking and I stopped using drugs for a while. But anytime something got hard, I didn't know a way out. I didn't have a resource. I had people I could talk to, but I wasn't really telling them what was going on with me. So a number of years went by and I didn't use drugs or alcohol, but I wasn't working on my mental health. So eventually, I relapsed on prescription pain pills. I had a surgery, and I had some pills left over, and I didn't dispose of them the way I learned how to dispose of them now. I had them in my bathroom somewhere, and I was going through some issues, and I realized I was in so much pain, and I didn't want to be in pain anymore, and I took the prescription pain pills. This is after about 10 years of not doing drugs or alcohol. And from that day on, I decided also I could drink like a lady. And there was no drinking like a lady to be had. I was hiding vodka in my freezer. I was hiding it from my husband and my family. And I was about 1.5 years into that relapse of hardcore. I was doctor shopping for a long time until I ran out of doctor shops. And then I had a dealer, and I would find my dealer, and I would say to him, like, am I taking too much? I would tell my dealer. He says, no, this is good, right? Because of course they want to make money. And then one day I decided that I just couldn't take it anymore, and I just wanted to die. And I wanted to, I don't remember a lot, I was pretty high and really drunk this night. I didn't want to be here. And somehow, I found my way in an ambulance. I was handcuffed to a gurney, dragged out of my house. Someone did a welfare check on me, which is when all the police come to your house and drag you out of your house, even though I was kicking and screaming. I was belligerent, don't take me out, don't you know who I am? Ridiculous. and they saved my life that night. I was in the hospital overnight, almost dead, wanting to die. And I had a really good friend who showed up at the hospital, and my husband and my brother-in-law. And they were there, and they said, you gotta take care of yourself, you gotta get to rehab, you gotta do something. So, by the grace of God, I got to rehab that next day. Kicking and screaming. I didn't think I needed rehab. I didn't think I had a problem. I'm in the hospital, literally handcuffed to the gurney because I was so belligerent, and I didn't think I had a problem. But what happened was, I spent 98 days in rehab. And I learned about the disease of alcoholism. I learned about how to reparent myself. I learned about addiction, prescription drug obsession. I learned about compulsions, and I learned how to heal myself from the darkness of my addiction and from the darkness of my past. With the help of a higher power, I always have to give it back to God. And some really good people in my life. I got out of that rehab needing some forgiveness and needing to forgive others. And one of the people I needed the most forgiveness for was my then 16-year-old son, Christian. I almost ruined his life. I'm sure I traumatized him for life, but I almost ruined it completely from my alcoholism and my drug addiction. And he came to family program at rehab, and he learned about the disease of alcoholism, and he learned what was wrong with his mommy, and he learned how to forgive me. Today that boy is 25 years old. He just made me a grandmother. And he's struggling. And he's struggling, and I know everything now. I'm 9.5 years sober. And my 25-year-old boy is struggling, and he needs to be sober and clean, and he's not ready, and he's not willing, and I don't know what to do other than to be a really good example for him, to be a role model, to say, when you're stressed, don't come home and say, oh, I need a drink. Go for a walk, pray, meditate, drink some water. Right? He's not doing any of that. He's struggling. Last year during COVID was hell, and I thought he was going to kill himself. My doctor always says, you're only as happy as your happiest child. Somehow he survived last year, barely. So here's what I know. I was fortunate enough to be able to go to rehab. I had good insurance, and we were able to send me to a really decent rehab. When I got out of rehab, I went to a year's worth of an outpatient clinic, and then I spend all of my time in a program of recovery that helps me stay sober, somewhat sane, and functioning without drugs and alcohol, and able to be here for my 25-year-old, who I have faith will get through this hard time right now. Even if it's just because he tells me, he knows who I am now. We're like this. He has forgiven me. He's worked through our issues. He's struggling with drug and alcohol addiction and some issues that he knows that he can talk to me about. And the only reason he knows that is because I have never once come down on him. I've never judged him. I've never acted holier than thou. I'm just his mother who loves him, who is sober, and I'm setting an example for him. If he had a resource like the Red Songbird Foundation to go to, I would send him. I would do anything in the world for him, and he knows that. And, I think the thing I can say more than anything, someone talked about shame. I understand it. I understand shame. I understand the reason why we have to overcome shame. But for the most part, it's because I want to say loud and proud that I'm Brandi, and I'm a drug addict, and I'm an alcoholic. And I'm here today to say I'm 9.5 years sober. I'm here for my children. I also have a little 8-year-old boy now. Who knows what problems he's going to have, but I'm going to stand here strong and be here for my children and set the right example for them as best I can. as long as I work a program of recovery, that I'm learning every single day how to do it differently, how to do it better. We say it's progress, not perfection. And I try not to beat myself up for the past stuff, right? I try to just accept the love that I want and be the love that I want to give. And I don't know, I just want to be able to help others. I no longer feel hopeless. I no longer feel like there's not a way out. And I no longer feel like a drink or a drug is going to fix anything for me. And so it's a good place to be, standing here in front of a group of people who I think the world of. Thank you, Jason, for this incredible opportunity to be on this board and to be part of this foundation that I believe in so much. And thank you everyone for sharing your incredible stories, Jodi and Lacey and Noah and everyone. Just thank you. And Vito, I'm going to hand it over to you. Thank you very much.
We're coming to the conclusion, and just a couple of things. Red Songbird Foundation is about 3 years old. The goal is to make it the Xerox or the Frigidaire of the recovery world, so people who need help will know where to come. In order to do that, we need your help. First thing, if you want to get involved or you want to learn more, go to the website. There is Red Songbird's very active on social media, and there's a phenomenal podcast hosted by Jason and Hillary that is very informative with some great guests if you want to follow something like that. So there's a lot you can do if you want to get involved. Reach out to the executive director, Alex, and let us know if you would like to do more or to learn more. And the last thing, in order to be able to do outreach like this, we need your help and people like you. On the table there's a sheet with a QR code. We really would like your help. If you could donate, any amount will do. We want to put on more events like this. Eventually we want to do them throughout the country. COVID has kind of slowed this process down, so we are now starting to do more of it. We want to do it in schools. So you can click on the QR code, you can go to the website. Myself and Alex will be around tonight if you want to know more or you want to get a little bit more involved or learn more about donating or how you can make a bigger impact. We're here, to explain anything that you need. So again, there's a sheet on the tables. If it's not, you can find it on a neighboring table with a QR code, or you can go to the website, or you can speak to one of us. And before I forget, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Terra Mia Pizzeria in Laguna Hills and SoCal Mental Health for supplying the food and the beverages tonight. And lastly, I mentioned earlier that people are, turning tragedy into hope and doing extraordinary things, and you saw that in our speakers tonight. So if we could have a big round of applause for Lacey, Noah, Jason, and Brandi, and Jodi Barber. Thank you so much for sharing your stories and for everything that you do.